Imagine stumbling upon two bodies wearing matching suits and mysterious lead masks with cryptic instructions nearby. On the fateful afternoon of August 20th, 1966, a young boy flying a kite on Morro do Vintém in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, stumbled upon a scene that would baffle investigators for years to come. The bodies of two men. The two men were found lying side by side, wearing matching suits and lead masks covering their eyes. What made this case particularly perplexing was the absence of any signs of violence or struggle. There were no external injuries on the bodies. Near the bodies, investigators discovered an empty water bottle, a notebook containing cryptic notes, and a small package containing 2 towels. The small notebook that was also identified were written the instructions in Portuguese, and it said, 1630 be at the agreed place, 1830 swallow capsules, after effect protect metals await signal mask. The masks worn by the deceased added an extra layer of mystery to the case. One theory suggests that the men were attempting to make contact with extraterrestrial beings, and the masks were meant to protect them from harmful effects. Another theory states that the men were involved in some sort of esoteric or spiritual practice that required the ingestion of capsules leading to their deaths. This by far is one of the most mysterious cases I've ever covered, so sit back and grab a snack as we prepare to dive into the lead masks case. In the quiet afternoon of August 20th, 1966, a young boy flying a kite on Morro do Vintém, situated in Niterói, Rio de Janeiro, stumbled upon a chilling discovery that would baffle authorities for days to come. 2 technicians were dead, lying side by side on a hill. They were wearing matching suits and weird masks. The difficult terrain of Morro do Vintém, marked by steep inclines and dense vegetation, presented a formidable obstacle for the local police to swiftly reach the bodies. This challenging landscape not only heightened the mystery surrounding the incident, but also delayed the investigators' access, leaving the enigmatic scene undisturbed for an extended period. When a small team of police and firefighters eventually arrived the next day, they were met with an eerie scene. 2 lifeless bodies lay side by side, partially concealed by the grassy landscape. Each man was dressed in a formal suit, adorned with a lead eye mask, and protected by a waterproof coat. Strikingly, there were no apparent signs of major trauma or indications of a struggle, adding an extra layer of perplexity to the unfolding investigation. Adjacent to the bodies, a peculiar array of items deepened the mystery. A discarded water bottle, a packet containing 2 damp towels, and a small notebook holding cryptic instructions. The notebook, inscribed with the message, 1630 be at the specified location, 1830 ingest capsules, after the effect protect metals await signal mask, hinted at a clandestine rendezvous or ritualistic sequence of events. The identities of the deceased men emerged as Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel José Viana, both electronic technicians hailing from Campos dos Goitacazes, a town northeast of Rio de Janeiro. As investigators delved into the lives of these seemingly ordinary individuals, a series of questions emerged, urging a closer examination of their actions and motivations leading up to that mysterious afternoon. Piecing together fragments of their last days, the duo's journey from Campos to Niterói unveiled a seemingly ordinary trip that took an extraordinary turn. Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel José Viana unveils a snapshot of 2 seemingly ordinary lives, hailing from the town of Campos, situated approximately 170 miles away from Morro do Vintém, where their bodies were found. These men were not only skilled electronic technicians, but also devoted family men. Both married with young families, Viana and Cruz were esteemed members of their community, known for their proficiency in electronics, so the events unfolded this way. Viana and Pereira da Cruz had told their families they were going to Sao Paulo to buy some electronic equipment and a used car on August 17th, 3 days before their bodies were discovered on the hill. Their friend Elcio Gomez claimed to have dropped them off at a bus depot, but an unusual sequence of events followed. The men refused to let Gomez enter the bus depot with them, and instead boarded a bus to Niterói, diverting from their intended destination. The 2 men were later seen purchasing matching raincoats, and they appeared to be in a hurry. They were also seen at a bar, and the bartender later claimed that Viana seemed nervous because he kept looking at the clock. Viana also bought a mineral water and asked for a receipt so he could recycle the bottle later. Less than 5 miles from Rio de Janeiro, the police in Niterói received a chilling report, an overpowering and unpleasant odor enveloping the Morro do Vintém hill. Upon investigation, they stumbled upon an eerie scene. 2 neatly dressed men adorned in suits and raincoats. What was most unsettling, however, were the odd lead eye masks placed next to their heads and the mysterious notebook with instructions. On August 21st, the scene was finally secured by police. The men were wearing the masks like glasses at the time of death. They were unlike standard lead masks or shields of the time that protected from radiation. In fact, these masks would have done little to protect the men while also making them incapable of seeing anything. Researchers later speculated that the men knew exactly what they were doing with the masks and were actually trying to protect their eyes from a supernatural source of light. Reports of a similar case to the lead mask deaths, as well as multiple sightings of bright lights in the area the men were found, further fueled speculation that the masks were part of a scientific experiment. A notebook found near the two men's bodies contained a series of mathematical equations, as well as some strange notes about dosages and meeting places. While the equations weren't too out of the ordinary considering Viana and Pereira de Cruz's profession, the notes were a red flag for investigators. The notes regarding dosages read, Sunday, 1 capsule after lunch. Wednesday, 1 capsule at bedtime. The second page of notes included the following. Be at the place arranged at 16:30. Take capsules at 18:30. After feeling effects, protect half the face with lead masks. Await the agreed signal. The notes read almost as if someone was verbally dictating to the men, but police had no idea what the notes meant. During the investigation into Viana and Pereira de Cruz's unusual deaths, Pereira de Cruz's wife told police both men were scientific spiritists. The Spiritism movement was started by Allan Kardec in the 1800s. Pereira de Cruz owned several books by Kardec, in which he wrote notes and highlighted passages. His wife also told authorities that Elcio Gomez, the friend who had given the men a ride to the bus stop, was also a practicing spiritist. The story only got stranger from there, as evidence of clandestine science experiments and alien encounters reached the forefront of the investigation. Pereira de Cruz's wife and Gomez all revealed that the men had attempted to contact alien spirits multiple times. Gomes told authorities the three men attempted to contact spirits on Mars using an electronic device they had built. But when the men attempted to use the device in Pereira de Cruz's backyard, it exploded. They then attempted another experiment at an Atafona beach on June 13, 1966. During the attempt, the men reported seeing an orange-colored oval floating in the sky that emitted bright rays of light before exploding. Multiple witnesses saw a flying saucer hovering over the ocean, and the explosion was felt several miles away. The Navy even investigated the blast. Many speculate that the events of attempt of June 13th directly led to the events of August 17th, and some even claim Viana and Pereira de Cruz's deaths were some sort of revenge for the flying saucer explosion. This is where things get weird for investigators. On August 17th, the same day that Viana and Cruz scaled Morro do Vintém, Senhora Gracinda Barbosa Coutinho da Souza, a woman of high social standing from the Fonseca area in Niterói, witnessed an ill-defined flying object. When she and 3 of her children were traveling that evening, she noticed an oval-shaped object of an orangey color, with a band of fire around its edges, hanging over the top of a hill and sending forth rays in all directions. Souza halted the vehicle, and for about 4 minutes she and her kids observed the item rise and fall vertically in the air. She told her husband about the encounter when she arrived home. He drove back but missed it himself. Nonetheless, a few days later she reported the sighting to the police. Shockingly, the Morro do Vintém, where the bodies had been discovered, was the hill de Souza had seen the object over. Given that Fonseca is some 13.5 miles from the Morro do Vintém, it is unlikely that de Souza knew that Viana or Cruz had visited the area earlier in the day. On August 25th, local newspapers published reports of this sighting and some assertions that the police were aware of additional information from the Sousas, but were keeping it a secret. While it would be difficult to verify these claims, they sounded dramatic. The police called several more persons to confirm the sighting after publicizing the news. Because the government at the time forbade discussion of UFOs, they had all hesitated to bring up such an odd situation. Still, Senora Sousa's willingness to step forward gave the others the confidence to do so. The arrest of Elcio Gomez, the individual who gave them a ride to the bus stop, further deepened the intrigue. Gomez, claiming involvement in a scientific spiritualist society, disclosed strange experiments and an explosive incident at Atafona Beach. Gomez asserted that he and the deceased men, Viana and Cruz, were part of a secret group of scientific spiritualists who frequently attended seances, and that virtually all local electronic experts and aficionados appeared to be also spiritualists. Gomez alleged that Viana and Cruz worked together on various weird electronic experiments to get in touch with Martian creatures. Gomez also claimed that he and Cruz had worked on an experiment in Cruz's garden that had severely burst, and Cruz's father corroborated this claim. In addition, Gomez revealed a peculiar episode that had happened on June 13th of that particular year, 2 months before Viana and Cruz passed away. Viana and Cruz had asked Gomes and a few others to visit the beach at Atafona, which is located 24 miles away from Campos. On that particular day, an intensely bright object descended from the sky and hovered over the beach's edge just before Gomez arrived. It lingered for 5 minutes before starting to climb, at which point there was a 15-kilometer distance building-shaking explosion and blinding glare. According to the local newspapers, police-like inquiries led to a fisherman from Atafona who claimed to have witnessed a flying saucer crash into the water. Media also reported that the inexplicable deaths of Viana and Cruz had piqued the interest of the Brazilian Navy and Air Force intelligence. The Navy allegedly received a bizarre set of messages on June 12th, the day before the Atafona explosion, relayed by stations using identifications that didn't exist, according to one daily, the O Cruzeiro of September 16th. There were no specifics of what the Navy heard reported, only a broad assumption that they had to be related to the explosion the following day. 2 more details were added to the intriguing puzzle by the same paper. They insisted that the masks were produced in Viana's studio, where traces of the production process and a book on scientific spiritualism that referred to masks, high luminosity, and accompanying spirits were discovered. A few days before the June 13th Atafona incident, according to the newspaper, Viana allegedly told his sister that he would soon be carrying out an important assignment and that it was a secret she couldn't share with anyone. Months later, the case took an unexpected turn when investigators discovered that the deaths of Viana and Pereira de Cruz were not isolated incidents. In 1962, a TV technician named Hermes was found dead on a hilltop in another Brazilian town with a lead mask beside his body. Further research and speculation pointed to the consumption of certain drugs that would allow for these men to pick up on radio and television signals through telepathy. As strange as this theory sounds, it would account for the dosage instructions in Viana and Pereira de Cruz's notebooks. The 1962 case also gives credence to Gomez's testimony that many electronics technicians in Brazil practiced scientific spiritism. Amid the speculation and intrigue, the narrative takes a turn towards the scientific. In 1980, renowned UFO researcher Jacques Vallée stepped into the mystery. Vallée, a respected authority on UFOs, brought his expertise to bear on the Morro do Vintém case, examining it with a critical eye. His journey into Brazil and the heart of the mystery added a new layer to the investigation, blending scientific inquiry with the inexplicable. Jacques Vallée traveled to Niterói to inspect the scene in 1980, 14 years after the bizarre deaths, and documented his journey in his book, Confrontations, A Scientist's Quest for Alien Contact, and published in 1990. Vallée began this book by describing how he personally examined the Morro do Vintém case in April 1980. Jacques Vallée is a well-known author and spokesperson on the subject of UFOs. He began this book by describing how he personally examined the Morro do Vintém case, and this is what he said. He traveled to Brazil by plane with his wife to see the hill, a local French teacher who offered to translate, a journalist, a photographer, a detective who worked unsolved cases, and Vallée's wife climbed the hill with them. Vallée was joined by the first grown-up to witness the dead that day in August of 1966. He had gone with them to the police station at the bottom of the hill, where they told the officer in charge about their horrifying discovery. Vallée never gives us the name of this witness. Vallée claimed that despite being surrounded by large, lush plants, his nameless tour guide took him to a site on a hill where the ground was nearly bare. He reported that grass and other plants refused to grow, even then, in the spot where the bodies were found. People he questioned reported that while the bodies had decayed somewhat by the time they were found, they had no unpleasant smell, and they had not been scavenged by the local animals, who seemed to give them a wide berth. Vallée also provided a helpful diagram of the scene. According to Vallée's account, an 18-year-old kid and his friends were looking for their kite when they discovered the bodies. They immediately informed the unknown man who was acting as Vallée's guide because he lived nearby. The unidentified individual claimed that when the remains were discovered, they did not smell, and that vultures and other animals had not harmed them. The skin on the 2 bodies was pink when they were discovered, and may have had burns. But Vallée later claimed that the decomposition had progressed to the point where such a discovery was not significant, which doesn't make sense. Necessary evidence would be a burn that was still clearly evident when the victims were discovered. If the burns were that obvious, decomposition would not alter the situation. In addition, according to Vallée, other items that had never been discussed previously were discovered next to the deaths, including a crushed piece of aluminized blue and white paper, some cellophane soaked in a chemical solution, and a handkerchief with the initials AMS. None of these fresh subjects are brought up by him once more throughout the book. Vallée's account of the circumstances surrounding the deaths is also peculiar. After briefly recapping the identities of the two men, he states that Viana and Cruz were traveling to Sao Paulo when they stopped in Niterói, purchased raincoats and mineral water, walked up the hill, and were last seen there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Still, he refused to say who saw the men on the hill. This detail is now very common in new reporting, by hinting that the 5 p.m. sighting was by someone else, once more nameless. For whatever reason, Vallée changes the name of Cruz's friend Alicio Gomez to Alicio Correa da Silva, and claims that Alicio and another man named Valdir were present during the incident at the Atafona beach. According to Vallée, the explosions at Atafona beach and in Cruz's garden were caused by homemade bombs, built with pipes and wires. The victims' families attested to this. Vallée never attempts to explain why Cruz would be making bombs. Although claiming that the explosion at Atafona was caused by one of these bombs, Vallée continues to assert that nearby fishermen saw a flying saucer crash into the water following the explosion at the beach. In addition, Vallée claims that a relative of Viana, who attempted to prevent the men from taking their planned trip, was separately informed that their true motivation involved testing their spiritual beliefs and that they were not going on the trip to acquire anything. Vallée then adds a previously unknown UFO encounter that had occurred in Niterói on March 16, 1966, in which 4 people observed a brilliant oval object flying about 100 feet over a separate hill in the town. Jacques Vallée's investigation into the Morro do Vintém case added a layer of complexity to the already mysterious events of August 20, 1966. While his scientific inquiry brought forth new details and perspectives, questions linger about the consistency of his findings and the mysterious witnesses involved. He documented everything in detail in his book if you want to check it out yourself. Despite various theories, the police never found any conclusive evidence to solve the case, which was closed after 3 years. The handling of the investigation suggests gross negligence on the part of the authorities, who had been informed of the bodies days earlier. It is speculated that the guard who was warned may have even looted the bodies. In 2004, the authorities revealed that the toxicology test was never performed because the viscera of the bodies were rotting in the morgue. The lead masks case remains a puzzle that transcends the boundaries of conventional understanding. The eerie discovery of 2 men has captivated the imagination of investigators and enthusiasts. The scientific scrutiny by renowned researcher Jacques Vallée in 1980 brought new dimensions to the investigation. The motives of Viana and Cruz still remain a mystery. What actually happened that day? Was Viana and Cruz out to seek contact with extraterrestrial beings? And what role did the masks play in their mysterious quest? And what other untold stories linger within the shadows of Morro do Vintém? As we come to an end of this journey, I have a far-fetched question for you. Have you ever come across or heard something similar like this case in your hometown that hasn't quite made it to the mainstream media? Mysteries have a way of quietly existing, so comment below, I want to know, and maybe I'll do a full investigation on it. If you enjoyed this video, I kindly ask for you to hit that subscribe and like button. It helps me out tremendously. And don't forget to share this video with your friends. So until next time, continue to explore the unknown and remember to always seek the truth.